Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Kay Murray and Luis Miguel Echegaray here, looking back on Manchester United's late win over Leeds United. Boy, they kept it late, didn't they? It hadn't been a game that was the most exciting game, it is fair to say. But Marcus Rashford and Alejandro Garnacho scoring. I suppose we've got to talk about the fact that the future is looking very good in that sense of things for Luis. For them, basically.
For me too, Kay. For me too.
It's always looking good for you. I just thought, as I was saying it, though, I must let the viewers know that Mark Ogden is going to be joining us from Elland Road. And we're also having Dale Johnson in today to talk about those big VAR errors this weekend. We'll get his take on it. He's done an article on it on ESPN. But let's talk about the future for Manchester United. This might have been a different conversation had it not been those two late goals, Luis.
Yeah, I think you're right, Kay. I think the conversation would have been different. Obviously, maybe a little bit of retribution for Leeds United, seeing as, they were 2-0 up midweek and it took another, late gasp from Erik ten Hag's side to get 2-0 midweek. But today, like you said, took 2 late goals for it to happen. And I have to tell you something, Kay Murray. I wrote it this week in my column. Erik ten Hag is giving me these vibes of 90s Manchester United. Okay, not necessarily when it comes to all the successes right now, but in terms of the resiliency, the will to fight back, the ability to just keep going, even in a hostile environment, because we know that would happen over and over in the 90s all the time. United would enter a pitch, enter a stadium, and everybody, aside from being a United fan, hated them. And now you're seeing a side that doesn't care about anything from the external standpoint. They just care about getting the job done, even until the last second. A very good win. And now, temporarily, they are second in the Premier League table, Kay Murray. That's massive.
That would be another 90s throwback, wouldn't it? Late goals from them in a game where it looks like they're not going to get anything. Do you know what I absolutely love to see, though? Because of what we've seen from Garnacho in that last game, he's obviously very frustrated coming off. But Erik ten Hag was genuinely delighted that he scored, that he had the response that he did. And it's yet another sign of how well he is managing these players too.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you saw it a little bit as well midweek, when he made his changes with Jadon Sancho coming in and Pelistri, where it was his Premier League debut. And today, once again, Alejandro Garnacho, United fans absolutely adore him. Argentina and Spain, because that's who he can represent as well. They both love him and you can see the quality in him as well. But it's not just about him, it's the vibrancy of this squad. It's unbelievable. We forget that Marcus Rashford is still very young. And now, what is it? 12, 13 goals in the Premier League this season. Since the end of the World Cup, that's 12, 13 goals. It's unbelievable. And it's not just him. It's this collective will to keep going. And Leeds United, obviously, they're going through their issues after Jesse Marsch has left them. I thought Chris Armas did a pretty good job today once again, and the team. But Manchester United, like you said, bring back that 90s throwback. Very good. And I'll tell you something, Arsenal and Man City, they better watch out because it's another horse in the title race.
You still think that it is another horse in the title race?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I wrote it this week and I think so. Yeah, 100%.
All right. Let's get Mark Ogden in, shall we then? He's been at Elland Road today for this game. Definitely more entertaining towards the end. Let's just get your initial reaction then, Mark, before we get into some of the bones of it.
Yeah, I thought, until Rashford scored, I thought it was going to be, the piece I was going to write was that Man United are losing steam. It would have been 1 winning 5 up to there. And I was thinking that, with Arsenal dropping points recently, Man City dropping points recently, United have really missed a chance in the last couple of weeks to put some pressure on. So for me, Rashford's goal, it keeps him in the title race. And I'm not sure. I'm not as convinced as Elami that there's 3 teams in the title race. I think there's 2.5 teams in it. I think United need to put the foot down now. But they also know that they've played Arsenal and Man City twice, home and away. Arsenal and Man City have to play each other twice, so they will drop points. One of them will drop points, or both of them will drop points. So there is an opportunity there for United to get back in. But watching the game today, I think we've got to take away the last 10 minutes because obviously the 2-goal win in the record books will say 2-0. It was a lot closer than that. And for me, I think United really missed Casemiro and Christian Eriksen today in terms of creativity, dominating the game. And up front, they lacked a little bit of edge, bit of cutting edge. And I think against the better teams than Leeds, they will find that difficult. But they're getting results. This was a big win for so many reasons. Big to win at Elland Road, big to keep them in the title race, but also big to show they can win without Casemiro and Christian Eriksen because those two have been massive this season. And, a lot of focus has been made about Casemiro being out of the team today because of suspension, which is right. But people haven't really talked about Eriksen. He's going to be out until maybe end of April, beginning of May. So, a massive loss, and they have to find a way to overcome that. And today it gave them belief that they can do.
Yeah, finding a way is what I wanted to add in that point. And we saw it as well against Arsenal when they played Everton and when they played Brentford as well, albeit obviously due to that VAR decision. That if you want to win, if you want to come to Europe, if you want to reach a Champions League spot, a Europa spot, or even win the Premier League, you have to win ugly. You have to win when you're not playing well. And Oggie's spot on. Like Casemiro's presence in that midfield is vital. And so is Christian Eriksen, because that's actually the foundation of every Ten Hag system. But when you win without them, when you win when you're not playing well, when you win when you're in a hostile environment, that says something that, yes, we may not always be great, but we're going to get a victory. That's massive.
I just pick up when Amir was talking about the 90s and how this reminded people of the 90s. Well, in the first half, when Weston McKennie, he basically went through Tyrone Malacia, and Malacia was on the pitch getting some treatment. Eric Ten Hag went absolutely mad at the officials, and I've not seen a United manager since Fergie that's done that. And it's almost like managing the officials. It was like, and obviously Jose Mourinho was quite agitated, but Ten Hag made a real point of getting to the fourth official, getting to the referee and making clear that he was unhappy with the tackle and other tackles. And it was almost like he was out there defending his team, his club and his players.
Yeah.
It was him making a point that I'm the boss. I don't know, intimidating the referees. I'm putting pressure on the referees. But all top managers do it. And it was classic Fergie. And Fergie obviously overstepped the mark quite a lot in his day. And,
yeah, he did.
But it worked. He tapped his watch in 90 minutes. But it worked. And Ten Hag, for me, I thought Ten Hag really had the Fergie presence on the touchline today.
You know what? I feel like he's always vocal in the right way as well, Mark. Like he's quite open with some of the decisions that he's made, some of the things he's not happy with when he does have to call his players out. But it never feels like it's too much. It never feels like he's throwing them under the bus. It always feels as though he's being that little bit more transparent with us as the viewers and as the fans of the game. And I was just interested to know what you thought about the first half and the second half starts from Manchester United today, because obviously that's what he was really annoyed and really vocal about in that first game against Leeds midweek, when he said we didn't start strong enough in either half, because we saw it happening all over again in the second half here, didn't we?
Yeah, the second half was a really bad start. Leeds were all over United for the first 10 minutes, and it looked as though they were going to let it slip again. So that's something he has to manage, and I think that again is a personnel thing, because I think Marcel Sabitzer is a different player to Casemiro, and he brings athleticism and he brings energy, but I don't think he can kind of command the midfield like Casemiro can. So Sabitzer and Fred lost control of the midfield for quite a period today. They were being overrun. I thought Weston McKennie and Tyler Adams were excellent for an hour for Leeds. I thought they had such bite in the tackles. They were really driving the team on. And for me, obviously the pair of them coming together, the big mates from the US national team, and they're both very tenacious players, both very driven midfielders. And I thought their energy set the tone for Leeds today. And when they were dominating that period of the second half, it was led by them. They were snapping into tackles. They're making it really uncomfortable for United. They were bossing the midfield area, and that meant United lost control. So for me, take away the fact that Leeds lost today. If Leeds are going to stay up, McKennie and Adams are going to be huge, because they've got this real fighting spirit, this real drive, and I think it will be a massive thing for Leeds.
Yeah, a massive chemistry already. Obviously, we've seen the pictures of them as kids that have grown up together too, so that's going to be a big boost for them. All right, midweek, I asked Stevie Nicol, who was going to join us today but couldn't in the end. I asked him if United were closer to Arsenal and Manchester City, or they were closer to the likes of teams that are further away from them points-wise in the table, in Liverpool and Chelsea. When you look at squad depth and quality, who do you put them closer to? I'll ask you both, but I'll start with you, Luis.
Arsenal and Manchester City. And I know that United still needs some pieces, and I know that there's still question marks, specifically up front. Martial keeps being injured. Wout Weghorst is not exactly, Ruud van Nistelrooy, but, I do believe that Manchester United, again, is part of this title race, whether it's, a 2.5, like Oggy was saying, or a 3. The reason is with Eric Ten Hag. When you change the culture of a club, regardless of the external issues surrounding it, the Glazer ownership, fans against the Glazer ownership, the lack of depth in certain places, then when you instill a manager that can instill a culture, I mean, Mikel Arteta has proven it, Pep Guardiola did it obviously from day one as well, a bit with much more money, that's when you can begin something. So now what you're seeing is when Manchester United is fit, when you have a fit squad, when Casemiro's in there, Christian Eriksen, of course, right? And everybody's clicking, and Bruno Fernandes, and the key component, the fact that Cristiano Ronaldo is not here anymore. So this is more of a cohesive system. Then you have something very special. It's not the finished product. There's still work to do, but make no mistake about it. Manchester United have only lost once in 2023. And now they're temporarily, right, temporarily they're second in the Premier League. So they're definitely closer to Arsenal and Man City. Now, is there a way to go? Of course there is. But the number one problem, I believe, has been solved. Sir Alex Ferguson's ghost continues to remain in this club, right? Because he's clearly a voice or whatever. Finally, they have a manager who is changing that culture and emulating, at the very least, that fighting spirit. And that's massive.
Yeah, I think Ten Hag is the first United manager that's come along without the ghost of Fergie hanging over him, with no, Solskjaer had a connection to him. Mourinho did, in the sense that he was the big mates with Fergie. Van Gaal was the guy who was going to come in and correct it. Olin Moyes was his successor. So, Ten Hag has benefited from a clean slate. But getting back to your question, Kay, I think that, I know this might surprise me, but I think that United have got the fifth strongest squad in the Big Six. I think they're stronger than Tottenham, but I think if Ten Hag had the Chelsea squad right now, Chelsea would be doing a lot better than they are. They've got much more depth. And I think Liverpool as well. I think what you see at United is they've got a very good, maybe first 11 or 12. But we saw today, Harry Maguire was poor today. And, if they're playing an Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool, Barcelona midweek with Harry Maguire at centre-half, I wouldn't be too confident. But with Varane and Martinez, different. I think you've got a chance then. I think up front, they're being carried by Marcus Rashford. You take Rashford out of that team and I'd be really worried about where they're going to score the goals from. So Ten Hag is somehow getting so much more out of this team than it's probably getting much more than the sum of its parts, shall we say. Take Rashford out, nobody's going to score the goals. Without Weghorst, I see why they signed Wout Weghorst. They needed an extra body, but he's not good enough. He really isn't good enough. It's like watching Peter Crouch playing for Man United. It's just not. He's not.
Poor Peter Crouch, Hoggy.
He runs like Peter Crouch. Sorry, but I think obviously. Sorry, Peter Crouch. Peter Crouch is a better player than Weghorst, and I take that back. But they have a similar kind of gait. It doesn't look right. I'd take Odi Nigalo ahead of Weghorst.
I don't like him.
Yeah, I'd take Igalo ahead of Weghorst because Weghorst had a better movement. But he's there for a reason. I think he's played 9 games now. Weghorst. He scored 1 goal. He's doing a job, but he's not particularly good in the air. Weghorst. Everyone says, "Oh, he's great. He's 6'6". He's not great in the air. He's okay on the floor, but he's no pace. So for United, they need him there, obviously, but they need Anthony Martial to get fit. And they need Martial to get fit and get back in the team. Because I think when you've got Rashford, you've got Martial, and an informed Sancho or Garnacho, it's a different scenario. But Ten Hag is getting so much more out of this team than they're actually capable of. So that is down to him. And yeah, they aren't the strongest squad in the top 6 by any means.
Yeah, and will he ever have a song like Peter Crouch had at Liverpool? Like, he's big, he's red, his feet stick out the bed. Peter Crouch. That was one of my faves. That was definitely one of my faves. Seeing as though you mentioned Marcus Rashford, Mark, let me just stick with you here. Season of his life? Yeah,
absolutely. Considering what it came on the back of, because last year it was probably the worst season of his life, and he admitted that himself, that it was out of form on the pitch, both, physically and psychologically. Had a bad season last year. When he came in the team, what would it be now? 2016, 17? It was this amazing breath of fresh air, and he has scored a lot more goals than people would give him credit for. But clearly, he's added something to his game now, and he's carrying Man United. And I've said this before, but I think there's something to it. Marcus Rashford wanted to be the main man at Man United, and Cristiano Ronaldo came along, and he wasn't the main man, and he had his worst season last season. Ronaldo goes, and all of a sudden, Marcus Rashford is kind of thinking, right, I'm the guy now. I'm the main man. I'm the guy that carries this team, and 13 goals in 14 games. So. People have compared him to Mbappe and Neymar, and it sounds ridiculous, but he's got the pace, he's got the trick, he hasn't got the consistency in front of the goal that they have. But he believes that he wants to be in that conversation. Marcus Rashford wants to be talked about like your Mbappes and your Neymars and your Haalands. And, he's having that season where you can talk about him like that because he's Man United's match winner. If you're the match winner for Man United, you're a great player. And he's now loving the moment, and he's getting better with every game because he knows he's the main guy.
Marcus Rashford has 13 goals in the last 15 matches since the turn of the World Cup, I believe. Aside from the duo that is Cravardona and, of course, Osimhen at Napoli, he's the best player in Europe right now. He's absolutely fantastic. He can have maybe 60 minutes where he might be struggling, and then boom, he lights it up. Today, of course, was a great example. He is tremendous, and I believe thanks to our stats team here, but our producer wrote more. Ben Yedder, I think, is the only one that's leading in Europe in all the top major leagues. This is a tremendous player. And Oggie's right. Like, you take him away, of course, and Manchester United look a little bit different. But I think you can say that about, almost any good team. You take out one key personnel, then the team's obviously going to look different. Kay, I think Marcus Rashford at this moment, aside from the duo of Napoli, he's the best player in Europe.
I'll tell you what, just quickly, he's making the Man United chief exec worry every time he scores now because his contract is expiring at the end of next season.
Shaking on his boots.
Marcus Rashford has got a contract negotiation going on right now or in the summer, and it'd be like, he's in the strongest position he could ever be, and it's costing Man United a fortune every time he scores. Obviously, he gets in the Champions League, he's earning the money, but Marcus Rashford can now say, right, this is what I want, pay me.
Yep.
But isn't what they want as well, Mark? When we are looking at the club returning to its identity as well, a homegrown player like this to be leading his side.
You'd hope so. You'd hope that. But obviously, there are issues at United with the ownership, and I'd imagine whoever the Man United owners are, they will not want to lose Marcus Rashford. They'll have to pay him what it takes. Like I say, he's a homegrown player. He's the poster boy. He's everything that Man United could want in terms of brilliant PR. They have to keep him, but it's going to cost them a lot of money.
All right, let me talk to you about Jadon Sancho, because Erik ten Hag had said if he's fit and he's in the right shape, he always has to play. He has magnificent quality. This was his first start since he returned to the fold. How did he do today, Mark?
I don't think he did very well, to be honest. I think for the very first minute, Tyler Adams smashed him, didn't he? He hit him with a really hard tackle, which I said set the tone for Leeds. I thought Sancho was poor today. He swapped sides with Rashford a couple of times. Sancho has got great talent, we know that, but it's a long road back, I think. I think, we have to give him time to find his form again, because Ten Hag is right. He's a very talented player, and he can create goals, he can score goals, but he's not there yet, and I thought he was poor today.
Yeah, listen, just very quick on Jadon Sancho. He's extremely talented, a great player, and Ten Hag is right. Like, when he's on it, he's on it. But he's the kind of attacker that needs the rhythm of the game to go his way as opposed to the other way around, right? Obviously, it's a little bit different midweek because when he came on, like, the system suited him better. Rashford went more central. Sancho stayed more on the left. But in a tough game like today, physical, hostile, of course, the environment is not going against you. Sancho can sometimes disappear, but there is no doubt of his talent. And if Ten Hag can get the best out of him, which seems that surely will be the case, then all the better for it. I mean, he's in a good club under a fantastic manager. I mean, I am such a fan of Ten Hag that, if he can't do it here, then I don't think he can do it pretty much anywhere else in the Premier League.
Let's talk a little bit about David De Gea, his 400th appearance today, the youngest ever goalkeeper to reach 400 in Premier League history, ahead of, here's a few names for you, Shay Given, David James, Petr Cech, and Mark Schwarzer. Let's talk a little bit about him. He's actually tied with Gary Neville with 400 Premier League appearances with United. How have you rated his time at the club, Mark?
I think you look back at it as a lot of unfulfillment, to be honest. I think he started off, won a couple of titles, Premier League titles, and he had that really tough start when he was very young when he came to United, and physically he wasn't ready for it, and it took a bit of time out of the team. I think Anders Lindegaard took his place for a while. I think it was a period of time when he was the best keeper in the world, and I think he was Man United's Player of the Year for like 4 or 5 seasons, and that showed you where United were, that their goalkeeper was the best player. But I do think that De Gea, his contract expires this summer. I think that maybe the change this summer would suit both parties. I think 400 games is a lot, and he doesn't have a lot to show for it. And I think the game has moved on a little bit. I think when David De Gea plays, I think he's not great with his feet. And I think the modern game is all about distribution from the back and being good with your feet, and that's what Ten Hag wants. And I think De Gea has been a good goalkeeper for Man United, but I think he's not in the same league as Edwin van der Sar and Peter Schmeichel in terms of their best. You look at what they won and how big a player they were. I think De Gea is, like I say, I think his time will come to an end, and I think United need to look at a different type of goalkeeper.
Yeah, well,
that might be harsh, but
let's stay there, Oggy. Who would they look for then, Manchester United? Who do you think? Pickford? Do you think they should chase after him? Henderson? Anybody else outside of the Premier League? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think Pickford's a Man United goalkeeper. I think they've got to look. I think Alisson, Becker, Ederson, they're the top two in terms of how they play the game. To Stegen, I don't know who the option is. I really don't. But I do think that the modern game, De Gea lacks that key attribute, which is distribution from the back. People talk about Unai Simon with Spain. Again, is he going to make United better? But I think they need a commanding goalkeeper as well. I think somebody that will dominate the penalty area. And whenever I've seen Tom Heaton play for United recently, he just seems to bring more assurance to the back four because he commands his goal a bit better. Now, David De Gea is a better goalkeeper naturally than Tom Heaton, but that's what United needs, somebody who can command the penalty area, allow the defenders to play maybe 10 yards further up the pitch because they drop too deep for De Gea. Don't want to get all too inside baseball about it now, but I think De Gea does change the way United play quite a lot. I think without him, they could be a better team.
Well, there are a few things that could have been better this weekend VAR decisions are definitely the biggest of them. We're going to welcome in Dale Johnson now, one of our editors at ESPN. He's just put a piece out today. Hello, Dale, about the Professional Game Match Officials Limited having to apologise to both Arsenal and Brighton. Obviously, the Arsenal one's been the big talking point in their game against Brentford, Dale, because of the fact that it could have title implications. So what more can you tell us about the weekend that it's been? And surely your own wealth of knowledge is being tested right now on VAR because of these decisions.
Yeah, well, it's quite remarkable, really. The Brentford goal at Arsenal came about purely because the VAR, Lee Mason, didn't realise he was a player in an offside position. Now, perhaps if this was a further back in the move or a few passes before the goal happened, you maybe could have a bit of understanding of why it was missed. But the player that was offside was the guy who created the goal. And Lee Mason didn't realise he tracked back slightly from an offside position to then run forward and create the goal for Ivan Toney to score. Now, it's almost like a lack of concentration or something like that, because I just don't see how you can miss that. And Lee Mason's really made far too many errors this season. He was also the VAR that disallowed the Arsenal goal at Manchester United, which was a confirmed error, and it was 0-0 at the time, which of course was the game Arsenal, one of the games Arsenal lost, and that could really have given Arsenal an even bigger lead. If you take those two decisions that Lee Mason has made, it's potentially a 5-point swing away from Arsenal.
Go on, Dale, I know you want to jump in.
Yeah. Can I just ask you, so when these type decisions are made, Dale, obviously people say, well, it's an offside decision. It's a matter of fact. It's not a matter of opinion. But on that one, it was obviously, tight. So do the referees have to err on the side of the defending team or the attacking team? Who do they favour? So what I'm saying is there an element of, you favour the attacking team, you reward the attacking team, or they play safe and favour the defending team?
So in terms of this decision, it was neither, because they just didn't spot the offside. But in terms of generally, if there's any issue with being able to identify or make the offside decision, then it goes with whatever's being made on the field of play. So, for instance, for the first incident where Pinnock was possibly offside, they weren't able to draw the offside lines on that situation. So they had to go with onside because they couldn't prove that Pinnock was definitely offside when the free kick was first played. But in many respects, that's irrelevant, really, because there was another offside by the player that created the goal rather than a subjective offside further back in the move.
All right. I have a feeling that Luis this week has a Take a Dito on VAR. And if you are joining us for the first time, Take a Dito is when Luis gives a hot take and we basically play VAR and decide whether it's an acceptable take or not. So tell us what you've got this week, Luis.
I like how you did that, Kay. I like it. Well, okay, so let's go with this. Let's stay with the theme in question right now, courtesy, of course, of the wonderful Dale Johnson being part of the show right now. Listen, here's the thing, and this is coming from me as an original VAR supporter. I think we need to get rid of it. Like, I'm done with it. I don't know if people know the comment, a camel is a horse made up by committee, but to me, this is essentially the essence of VAR right now. The reason why I think that we should get rid of it is because ultimately, fundamentally, VAR and technological decisions are made by humans. Human error will always be intricately part of it, aside from goal line technology. I think it's time to just get rid of it. Keep goal line technology, and I counter to another solution in the courtesy of the Super Bowl being today. We should have a challenge for a manager per half. The moment you feel that there's something gone against your team, you put up that challenge. If you're correct, you keep it for the second. If you're wrong, you lose it. I just think that the overwhelming abundance of detail that's been added in VAR has now intricately done the opposite. And it's become more sort of contextually problematic. And just like the Brentford Arsenal game, it's become a little bit of a nuisance and I think a headache for many of the officials, not to mention the one in the middle of the pitch. So my hot take is this: get rid of VAR, keep goal line technology, a challenge per manager. That's it.
Mark, you first.
Yeah, listen, I agree with that. I like the idea of a challenge. I think that's a good chat. I mean, but there are times when I want to get home before midnight when I go to a 3 o'clock kickoff, and that might be a challenge. But I think, I'm all for getting rid of VAR, but I think ourselves as broadcasters also have a kind of role to play as well, because the problem is, if we get rid of VAR, but then we show 15, 16 replays of an incident in slow-mo, then you're giving the fans, the managers, the players the opportunity to say, but look at that. If we had VR, that would have...
Yeah.
So do we need all these replays? Who does it serve? It just stokes up controversy, which is, it feeds the beast, obviously. But also, I think we have to be fair that if we get rid of VAR, we can't keep showing endless replays, because that will only encourage all these people, everybody, to say, well, hang on, if that was VAR, that was 6 yards offside or whatever. And also, it put Dale out of the job, because Dale's the king of VAR, so we can't be doing that.
I think the problem is, Mark, is like it's pretty much what you said, really, is that before VAR, we used to have discussion about refereeing decisions, and people used to get angry about the big ones. The problem is now with VAR, and because everything is looked at, things which before people wouldn't talk about.
Just microscopically,
absolutely looked microscopically. And I just think that if you take away VAR now, we're not going to go back to what we were 6 years ago, where people only talk about 2 or 3 incidents.
Yeah, which is why I countered with the challenge.
They'll double down on it again. They'll double down again on these incidents and say, "Oh, we've got rid of it now. Oh, we should have got X, Y, Z." And so, while there are many, many problems at the moment, especially, the worst thing about yesterday is they were the offside decisions. They weren't the subjective offside decisions. They were the simple ones, which technology is there to solve. It wasn't about the subjective decisions that were made wrong. So it's just like, you're not going to get rid of it, but it's just got to improve vastly from where we are right now.
Let's just keep Mark cold at the games. Go on, Mark.
I said it worked well at the World Cup by and large. I think it was a much quicker, much more definitive process in the World Cup. With the Premier League, they just seem to take forever. I don't know whether there's too many people involved. I don't know, but too many personalities. I just thought the World Cup and Champions League seems to work an awful lot better. Now, obviously, people find exceptions. There always are. But it just seems a lot slicker in those situations. And also the Lee Mason thing yesterday. It's not like he was in a stadium where there was there's managers ranting down his ear and things. It was in a at Stockley Park in a nice, comfortable, warm booth, watching it with no interference. So in that environment, you should be able to make a right decision with that. But it still couldn't make the right decision. So it is human error. But I don't know. Just the Premier League seems to be much worse than anybody else at doing it.
Yeah, taking so long. My only thing as well, Louise, with the challenge is, even with the challenge, they still got to get it right, because it's still going to have to be decided in a certain period of time, right?
But at least there's a decision just that one time, and that's it. Like, everything else just flows. I just feels like everything right now. And then to Augie's excellent point about the fact that broadcasters are playing the replay over and over again. My biggest point is this: just simplify the whole thing, because right now it's an absolute mess.
All right, let's talk about, before we wrap then, Louise, how your Villa are going to do against City today.
Well, let's see, Kay Murray. Pep Guardiola is absolutely angry as hell. You saw the press conference. He's out for blood. He's quoting Julius Caesar, for Christ's sake. Villa haven't beaten Manchester City since 2013. We haven't beaten Manchester City since 2007. So that means what? Una Emery's Clare and Blue Army, 3-1. We're going to take it.
What do you reckon, Oggy?
No, I think I wouldn't want to be the team facing City today. I just think there's so much of the City, there's so much anger at City. Yeah, exactly. They're out for blood, and I think today will be. I think the fans have already booed the Premier League anthem, so that gives you an idea as the kind of sense of anger that's there. So I think City will blow Villa away today.
Okay, I got an update for you. It's 2 minutes gone and it's 0-0, so we're good to go.
Exactly.
It's the last 2 minutes against Man City. You got to worry about.
Dale, have you got a feeling about today's game?
I just pray there isn't another massive VAR error, so that my evening is going to be ruined for the second day in a row.
Oh, Dale, guys, give Dale a break, please. He's already had a
Seriously.
very, very busy weekend with those big mistakes. PL Express will no doubt mention them as well tomorrow. I'll be back with Yanis bright and early Monday morning. But thank you so much for being with us here today. We'll be back again soon.